Hey, what's going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and today I'm going to be showing you right here with a Jasper motherboard how you can do a reset glitch hack 1.2 install. So we're going to be doing that start to finish, and I'll have a list probably somewhere on screen of all the stuff I'm using for this install. But the main components here, aside from my soldering equipment and such, I'm going to be using a Coolrunner Rev C, and this is a clone board. Honestly, they work the same as the legitimate ones. I've done a test on this before, so we're going to be using this. And I'm also going to be using a NAND X programmer. There's several different programs you can use. I'm just using these two components because one, I already have this, and two, there's other glitch boards out there, such as the X360 Ace V3, but the reason why I'm going with this one is because I have a few of these still here in my current stock, and also this requires the least amount of setup. I don't have to mess around with any other extra resistors, and I don't really have to remove anything off the board. It's pretty much plug and go once I program it. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be prepping our board. We're going to be cleaning it up, we're going to be fluxing the points, and we're going to solder on our NAND X cables right here, so that way we'll be able to read the NAND. Now the first thing I did was I updated this to the latest firmware. I did this a while ago, but it's on 17511, which is compatible with Reset Glitch Hack 1.2, so it's really up to you if you want to update it or not. I decided to because we're going to do an RGH 1.2 on here anyways, but let's go ahead and get this all prepared and ready to rock. Alright, so at this point, if I sound a little bit obstructed, it's because I'm wearing a mask for this, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking some isopropyl alcohol, which I would recommend, at least 91%. The higher you use, the better. I use 99, but what I'm going to be doing is right here, you need to find 2 points. You need to find these points up top, and you need to find these points right here. So you're just going to clean these up really well. All these points. And now that you have them all sufficiently cleaned up, what we're going to be doing is, I'll let it dry for a little bit, but I'm going to now use some flux. So I use Kingbo flux, just get a little bit on there like so. And we're going to be slapping it on these points right here. So kind of just like that. And we're going to be cleaning this up all later, so don't worry about that. But I'll go ahead, kind of put that on if I can. You don't really have to worry about using too much or too little. Honestly, with flux, it's better to use too much because, again, if you have good flux, you could always just clean it off pretty easily. And there you go. See how those 2 points? Now I'm going to have a diagram on screen showing the points that I will be tinning. And these are all the points that we're going to be soldering our NAND wires to. Just going to keep that on screen here, or keep this over on the side. And we're just going to touch up and tin these points. So one piece of advice I can give you on here is the yellow point. That's normally the hardest one to get, so you might want to turn up your soldering iron a little bit more and keep some more time on it, use some more solder. It's definitely possible to solder too, but that's normally the hardest one to tin. So what you want to do after that is you want to come up here to these 2 points, and we're going to be soldering or tinning the 2 green and blue points. So we're going to come up here, do this. These ones are pretty easy to get. So there's 1. There's 2. Alright, so now that all your points have been tinned, what you can now do is, easy enough, take your wires and we're going to tin them to all the points. And since these are color-coded, you're just going to match each color to the diagram. So green wire goes to green, blue wire goes to blue, etc. It's pretty easy to do. So we'll go ahead and work with that now. Alright, so now at this point you should have your wires soldered in, and I just showed, the 2 of them right there because, if you can solder 1 or 2 wires, you can do the rest of them. The only one that might give you some trouble is the yellow wire right there. But what we're going to be doing is we're now going to be hooking this up to our computer. So we're going to need a few things. First of all, if you go down below in the description, I'm going to have the tutorial I'm actually referencing as well too from Join the Resistance. He's done an awesome written tutorial over on 7 cents, which has helped me out several times here. So downloads are going to be in there, but also just crediting him to this. But we're going to be using the NAND X right here to flash everything. So what you want to do is you want to take this into the NAND X cable, and you want to find the slot that it goes into, which should be this right here. Plugs in just fine, so that's for your actual Xbox. And you're also going to need this cable as well too, which is specifically going to be for your Coolrunner. So I'm going to plug this into the side, and right here we're going to have our little programmer on this. So what we need to do here is we also need to grab the Coolrunner. So go ahead, grab that. We have it right here. Go ahead, open this up, and as you can see, brand new Coolrunner. So for this, what I'm going to be doing on here is you'll have to take this and you'll go in and connect it up. So let me just see the direction it's supposed to go. It looks like ground is right there and the ground cable is here. So you're just going to take it so the smooth side is up, and you're going to slide it in like so. So you're going to have to do this when you program the chip, and I'll show you all how to program it because we're going to flash it with a timing file now, so you don't really have to do it later. And if you want to tune it up, you're more than welcome to, but I'm just going to do this all now so we don't have to do it, you know, later on and such. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to have that connected. We're going to have this set to Phat because this is a Phat console, and we're going to have this set to program because we're going to be flashing it. So I'm going to show you how to do that here in the next step. And for the Xbox itself, we're going to also be dumping the NAND, and then we're going to flash our first file over to it. So when you're doing that, you're going to need to hook it up to power. So just take a power cable, plug it in, make sure it's powered, but don't turn on the system. All you need to do is plug it in. So the Xbox is hooked up to a power supply to your wall so we can dump the NAND and write it properly. As for that, I'd also recommend just do this step separately. Don't have it hooked up to the Xbox at the same time. So we're gonna do these in separate steps, but we're gonna do it over at the computer. So I'll go ahead and show you that part right now. Alright, so from the tutorial, you're going to need to grab these two files. You're gonna need to grab JRunner, and you're also going to need to grab the RGH 1.2 pack. So for JRunner, I'm just gonna go ahead and extract this. I'm going to do the same thing for the RGH 1.2 pack. These are our timing files that we're going to flash over, and JRunner is what we're going to be using to do the rest of this exploit. So right here, we're going to open up JRunner by going in here, find the JRunner exe, right click, and run this as administrator. Now once it pops up, everything like this is going to start. And what we're going to do is make sure your NAND X is plugged in, as I have right here, and then plug in your Coolrunner. Only plug in your Coolrunner, don't hook it up to your Xbox yet, and we're going to program this with a timing file. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go over to Advanced, Custom NAND CR Functions, and I'm going to select XSVF, and I'm going to need to pick a file right here, so you want to click this ellipse. Now once this pops up, you're going to need to go over to your RGH 1.2 file, go to try these first, and we're going to load up Matrix. Yes, even though this is a Coolrunner board, we're going to be loading up Matrix, XSVF, and I'm going to start with the 18 timing file right here. You can play around with these, but I'm going to try out 18 first. So I'm going to hit that, open, and run. As you can see, we're going to wait a little bit, and it will say done right there. Now at that point, we can exit out of this, and you can go ahead and disconnect your Coolrunner from your NAND X, because at that point it has been programmed. When you disconnect it, go ahead and slide that switch back into NOR mode, because we're going to pop it into the Xbox later on, and we're going to need it on NOR mode so that it will work. Now once that's done, go ahead and put that over to the side, and we're going to hook up the NAND X wires from the Xbox to our NAND X programmer. So when you're doing that, make sure you have everything plugged in, good to go, and make sure your Xbox is connected to power. Now once it's been connected, we're just going to do two reads right here, and we're going to click Read NAND. Now as you can see, everything has come up properly on here. So we got the flash config, it's saying it's a Jasper 256 megabyte. I'm going to select that on here, Jasper 256 megabyte, because that's the model I have, and I'm going to hit OK. Now at this point, it should start dumping your system. So wait for it to do 2 good NAND dumps, and we're just going to sit back and relax for a bit. Alright, so this one took me a while. As you can see, it took about 9 minutes per dump because this is a big block system. But as you can see, we now have it done. This is exactly what you want to see. You want to see your first dump, your second dump, and you want to see that the NANDs are the same. We're going to go ahead and check this as well. We don't have any KV info yet. And we don't have any bad blocks, both of which are, this is normal, but this is a good sign right here. And normally if you have bad blocks, JRunner will remap them for you, which is fine. But what we're going to be doing now is we need to create our image file, well, part of it. So this is one thing that trips me up several times when I use JRunner. During the second dump, it automatically switches from retail to JTAG. You do not want JTAG. If you select JTAG, your system will not boot up properly. You need to manually select glitch 2 because we're going to build a glitch 2 image. After that, make sure you have both of these loaded up right here. But before we do anything as well, you're going to want to go over to your output, at least where it might be. It makes this new folder because of a previous thing. But you want to go ahead and grab these 2 files. I'll just go ahead and grab the entire output file, copy, and paste it somewhere else. And you want to just make sure this is your backup. So I'll just call this RGH 1.2 backup NANDs. So that way, in case JRunner does anything, like it automatically deletes them, butchers them, whatever it is, you have your original retail untouched NAND dumps right there. So what we're going to do here is, now that we have both of those set up, I'm going to make sure glitch 2 is selected, and we're going to create a ECC image for our system. Mine again is a 256 megabyte Jasper. So I'm going to go ahead, hit OK. The ECC has been created, and now we're going to write the ECC over. Again, select your system, hit OK, and it's now going to write over our system. So that is why I also wanted you all to back up those files, because we are now officially modifying the system. And that's it. So that is our Zell image. So that means when we boot up our system, it should bring up Zell, which is the Linux loader. However, so by technical definition, we do have a modified system, but we don't have a way of booting it, which is why we need the glitch board. So now at this point, go ahead and disconnect your NANDX from your Xbox and from your computer, remove your Xbox from the power, get your soldering iron again, and we're now going to start installing the glitch board into the system with the hopes of glitching your system successfully. But go ahead and keep this all minimized. We're going to move over to the Xbox now. Alright, so now at this point, you're going to want to take your board. Again, we're going to want to make sure that this is set to NOR mode and this is set to Phat. We don't really have to do any other modifications to this. But right here, what I will be doing is I am going to take some tape. So let me just grab some electrical tape, and I'm just going to spread it across the chip so that way it's not moving around anywhere. So there we go, we have some cut, and I'll just kind of slap it on like so. And we can remove this immediately afterwards. But what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to first tin all these points, and I'm going to have a guide as to what we will be using. So we're going to be using these 2 points, 3v3 and ground, and we're going to use A, B, C, and D. We're not going to use E or F. If you want to, you can tin them, but there's really no point since we're not going to be using them. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead, take some isopropyl alcohol, clean these up nice and well, and we might as well flux them a little bit as well too. So I'll also go ahead and grab my flux, which is conveniently behind my camera, slightly saying that sarcastically, and we're just going to tin all these points here just a little bit, or flux them just a tiny bit. That's all we need. So now that we have that done, go ahead, take your soldering iron, and we're just going to put some nice points of solder across all of these right here. So as you can see, those are all looking good. We have some nice even looking globs. They're all shiny. That's optimally what we're wanting right there. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take our wiring right here. So we have fat cable, slim cable. I'm going to of course be using the fat cable right here. And we'll take it out. So you can also cut your own cable, that's fine as well too. I'm just going to be using these out of convenience and because the cables came with the system, and I'm going to go ahead and line them up right here. So first off, we're going to have, just kind of putting them up on the side here, we're going to have our 3v3, our ground. I'm kind of showing this off camera. Alright, so right here, I'll go ahead and show you all the cables I'm going to be soldering on. I've already organized them off camera right here, but first off I'm just going to go, at least on my side, from right to left. So we're going to go ahead and do the 3v3, and this is easy enough. You're just going to want to heat up the solder on there, and then just kind of load the cable in, so to speak. So we're going to do it like so. So that's our 3v3. Now we're going to do the same ones with each. So I'm going to use black for ground, because that will be easy enough. I'm going with green for our PLL wire. Orange will be for the standby clock. I'll be using yellow for our post. And got a little too overzealous right there, but we have it on. It's soldered in. And finally, I'm going to be using blue for our CPU reset wire, which should be the last one right here. So let me go ahead and bring that in. And there we go. Hopefully you all could see that somewhat clearly, but we now have all those points right there. So that should be all the physical work we have to do to the board. In my experience, I haven't had to do any other modifications. We have the switches in the right place. And if you ever have to reflash the board, like you have to put a timing file back on there, or you want to change your timing files, this is all you have to do, even when it's in the Xbox. All you have to do is switch this right here over to Program. You load in this cable right here, so the flat side is facing up. Load it in, you flash your timing file, you then unplug this, switch it back over to NOR, boot up your system, make sure it works. So we should be good to go on all that. So now at this point, I'm going to remove all this, and we can now go ahead and put it into our system. Now one thing that would also be good, I'm going to be taking this precaution right here, is I'm just going to take a Q-tip and clean this board up. So I'm going to clean the top of the board right here. There we go. And I'm also going to be doing the bottom of the board. And we could do a more thorough cleanup later on, but I'm just trying to remove most of the gunk off of that, so we have a nice surface to work with. You kind of want to make sure you have this bottom part clean as well too, especially since we're going to be sticking that onto the system. So I'd recommend, making sure this is all nice and clean and all that fun stuff. And at that point, we should be ready to rock. So again, that's still usable and such. We could do more thorough cleanup later on, but let's go ahead and hop over to the system. So one of the first things I like to do is I'm going to be using the AV port right here, and I want to clean this up. So we're going to clean up all of our points, and we're going to tin the ones we're going to use. So first off, I want to go ahead, make sure this surface is nice and clean, and I'm going to use this pin right here for our reset, or not our reset, our ground. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And we're going to be using some points right here. We're going to be using the 3.3 volt. So that one's already fine, but we're going to be tinning that later on. We're also going to be tinning right here our reset clock. So I'm going to go over to where it says R4B24. Make sure that's clean. Might as well just clean the entire area, really. So those are all the parts. There's going to be, ground, that point 3.3 volt, and the clock. Those are all the parts areas I'm going to be cleaning on the top of the board. Let's also go to the bottom of the board as well too. Alright, so right here I'm also going to have some screenshots and just some photos on screen showing these points that we'll be cleaning, but we're going to tin them as well too. And the points right here, so you're going to want to come underneath to where this X clamp is, and there's 2 points. One of them, you're going to kind of look underneath for some that says TP7R2, and there's kind of a dividing line. And the way I'm looking at it, at least, it's the bottom one or the top one, however you're looking. We're just going to clean that up a little bit. And I'm going to do my best to really, show how they are, but if the footage doesn't come out the best, pardon me on there. And then we're also going to look for TP7R3. Directly above that, there's another 2 dots. It's going to be the highest dot right there. And we're going to clean that one up as well, too. So now that those 2 are cleaned up, let's go ahead and flux them and tin them before I move on to the next point. And we're also going to do the points on the top of the system as well too, after all the ones on the bottom. So I'm gonna kind of want to do that, and I'm gonna want to do that. There we go. And these are really tiny sensitive points, so just be careful with what you're doing. And again, diagram will be on screen, but let's go ahead and tin these 2 points right here. So I'm just gonna touch a little bit of solder, kind of find it somewhere here, found the point. So now that's shiny enough, we barely need any solder, but once that's tinned, we can move on to the next one, which is somewhere inside of here. There it is. And I'll use a little bit of more solder on that point. There we have a nice solder ball, and I'll retouch this one. We have a nice solder ball on each one. I know you can barely see it, but trust me, that's the best I can do on those points right there. So now that we have those soldered in, we're going to move to the other side of the X-clamp, where we're going to attack one more. So right here, this one is the easier one to find out of all 3 of these points. So this is FT6U1, and it's that one right there. So again, what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to clean up that point, and then we will flux it and tin it, doing the same thing as we've done before. There we go. And that's honestly more than I needed, but we have that all done. So that point's been tinned. So now with all 3 of those points tinned, we can flip over the board gently, and we're going to tin the other 3 points on top, and then we're going to start putting the board on there. Alright, so first off, let's go ahead and attack the point I'm going to be using as a ground. This will be easy enough to hit. It's just going to be this right here. And really all you need to do is get some, you don't even need to tin it really. Just get some solder on there and you're good. Now at this point we're also going to be getting the 3.3 volt. So to the right, the way I'm looking at this, if I'm looking at the system, facing forward, directly to the right of that green wire, we're going to be tinning that. So we'll just do the same thing we've done with all the others. So that's done, and that's almost a little bit too much, so I'll kind of remove a bit. There we go. That should be a bit more optimal. And the last one's going to be the clock, which is arguably another hard point right there. So this is, you're going to look for R4B24, and there's going to be 2 points on the left, and there's going to be a resistor on the right. And it's going to be the, so the 2 points on the left, we're going to focus on those. It's going to be the one on the right of that. So for that, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to just glob some of that on there. And now that's done, we're going to go ahead and tin it. So just go to 2.4, that's the point. And let me bring in my solder a bit more. You just need a little bit on here. There we go. I think I can put a little bit more on there, but honestly, you don't really want to overdo it or else you can break it. There we go. My rule of thumb is actually, that's pretty gracious, but my rule of thumb is generally once it becomes shiny, it's good to go. Again, you're really going to be looking for, you're going to be working with tiny points right here. So you want to be careful. But anyways, we have all those in there. So now let's go ahead and apply the board inside. So at this point, we're now going to take our board and work with this here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the adhesive that we got, which it should be like this little white piece right here. I've removed one side of it, and we're just going to gently put it right there and press firmly down on it. And that should be more than enough. And now when we apply the board, we're going to be applying it like that. So there we go. I'm going to apply it something like that. So what I will do is I'm going to now remove this side of the adhesive. You could do this whatever way you want to. This is just the way I'm doing it for this video. And now we're going to carefully apply the board down. The glitch board, so to speak. And kind of just firmly press on it. And that's it. That is it. So one way I also like to test this as well is, let's say I have to reflash it. I can comfortably go in and hook this up right here. There we go. That's optimal. That's what we should be aiming for. So everything's installed there. Now we get to wire this up. So this will be the fun part. So let's go ahead and work on the ground point first. So for this, all you're going to do is really just curl this over and solder it to this point right here, which I will do right now. So let me go ahead. I'm going to be doing this the opposite way of the way I normally solder, but let's give this a shot. And that's it. So we have one wire done. We have 5 more to go. So let's go ahead and work on the others. All right, so at this point, we're now going to be doing the 3.3 wire. So I'm going to take this. So I'm going to do the best I can to show it. Kind of go down here to the point that we had tinned before, and just solder it in. So there we go, that's complete. So now we're going to take our clock wire and do the same thing, which at this point you need to be really gentle with, but I'm going to tin this again. Go in here, find it, and solder to it, just like so. So you want to be really gentle with it, and actually what I'd recommend now, so we have that soldered in, I'd actually recommend, if possible, kind of just like push it down, and I want to tape it. So take just a little bit of electrical tape, and we're going to cut that up and just tape it to the board so it's not moving around everywhere. So we can kind of push it down like so, and tape it like that. And we don't want that wire to move. So there we go, because that's a pretty gentle one. So now that we have that complete, we're now going to be working on the other points here. So now this is a little bit interesting predicament, so to speak. We're now going to have to run some wires to the bottom of the board. You might be wondering how to do that. We're going to have to run them through these south bridge holes right here. Don't run them through like any other holes, like any screw holes, because you know they might get ruined and crushed and all that stuff. But one thing that I've learned is do not use the don't use the south bridge hole closest to the GPU right here. You want to avoid that. So I'm going to be using 2 different holes. I'm going to be using this hole. I'm going to be using this one. So just those 2 holes are the ones that we're going to be utilizing. So this wire we're going to have to locate these. We're going to take the A wire and the D wire. So I'm going to grab this. This one's the green one and the D one is blue. And we're just going to thread these through. And it doesn't really matter the lengths and all that such right now. You can edit that later on. But I want to at least get these pulled through. So hopefully you all can see that maybe. Might not be the best focus, but either way, we don't want it super tight on there. Give it a little bit of slack, and we're going to do the same thing with our D wire. And finally, we have this yellow wire right here, and we're going to want to do the exact same thing to this. This should be your C wire, and we're going to run this slightly over. As I said, we're going to run it over to this hole on the other side, and just do the same thing, thread it through. Now, if you know a better wire placement or anything, I mean, feel free to share it, feel free to, you know, do what you want on here. I'm just saying, for the other couple systems that I have worked with, this has been optimal for me. So, we're going to go ahead and bring that through, kind of gently, and there we go. So now that we have all three of the wires threaded through, I'm going to go ahead and flip the board over. So here I'm just kind of showing you the overall placement of the wires, but for the yellow one, I'm going to take it up, kind of going to snake it through here, and I'm going to solder it in right there. And I don't recommend taping it down yet. Reason being is I'm going to show you all how you can tape it down and such, but kind of find your placement. So like the yellow wire will look like that, and the green and blue wires are going to be going kind of this way, and they'll hit the points they need to. So first off, let's go ahead, I'm just going to move these out of the way. Let's go ahead and work on that yellow wire right here. So for the yellow wire, again, I'm just going to, I cleaned my soldering iron off, going to tin it a tiny bit. And you want to take this, go over to FT6U1, and solder it in like so. And that's about all you need on that, man. That's really all you need. Less is more. Jesus Christ, my dog. Just remember that. Less is more. So anyways, we now have the blue and green wires right here. And we're going to work on those as well too. So first off, let's go ahead and get the green wire. And the green wire is going to be our PLL point. So I'm going to just go ahead and bring it around here, so to speak. And again, I'm going to do my best to record this, but if it doesn't come out the best, I really do apologize, because this is just, I'm soldering at awkward angles here. But you're going to go ahead, hit that if you can, and it looks like we got it. Nice. Alright. I kind of want to redo that though, but that should be fine. That should be fine. So we have it. Yeah. That was almost an accident, honestly, but we got that right there. So soldering accidents can sometimes be great. And finally, we're going to hit the reset down there as well too, right underneath the X clamp. So I tried my best to get it, but we're going to come over here, kind of hit it like so, and let me heat that up if I can. And that's it. So that is it. At that point, the basic wire install has been done. So we can kind of stop sweating the wires right now, which is nice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to back out a little bit, and I'm going to kind of show you all some rough placement. So for this right here, what I'd recommend doing is kind of have the yellow wire set up something like that. I normally try and kind of go up a little bit and then angle it over this way. And for these two wires, I want to kind of pull them back a little bit, so don't like go crazy pulling them, but I'm going to feed them back as much as I can, because I noticed, at least with my boot times and such inconsistency, it doesn't really matter how much excess is on the top of the board, but on the bottom of the board it makes more of a difference. That's at least been from my testing. I could be wrong on there, but I'm just saying that off experience. I also don't really want these to... You don't really want these to touch the X clamps here, because you don't want anything crushed, you know? So, kind of do it like that. There's a little bit of give right there. But aside from that, let me kind of move it over here if I can. I think we're good at that point, honestly. They're a little bit tangled up, but I've noticed that's normally okay. So, we have our two wires there, and the reason why I'm really stressing this is because this exploit is so touchy when it comes to wires. So if you're having issues with your console red ringing or freezing on boot, it's most likely the way you positioned your wires on the bottom of the board. And I'm just double checking my soldering right there. We got all the right points. So now that we have that, we can gently flip over the board and we can begin our testing and finish up the exploit here if this all works. Alright, so for our most basic benchmark, we just want to make sure that the system works. So all I do is I hook up in the back here. I have our power, HDMI, As you can see right there, the Coolrunner does have power, so if we get that red light, that is very good. And I hook up the fans, and I kind of have them this way, so that way it cools down the CPU and GPU. But all you want to do is turn it on. And wow, that was really fast. Alright, so now if you get that boot, that is a very good sign. And we're going to come over here, and we now have Zell reloaded. So at the very base of it all, like the very basic definition, we have successfully reset glitched our console. However, we're obviously not done, because we're not supposed to just get Zell reloaded. We're supposed to get our dashboard, we're supposed to be able to do things like play games and all that stuff. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to wait for this to run through, and as you can see down here, you're going to have a CPU key and a DVD key. If you don't have network access, I'll show you what to do. So if you don't have network access, you want to take where it says your CPU key, and you want to make sure you type that up correctly. Worst case, if you don't type it up correctly, you're not going to be able to decrypt your NAND, so you just have to go back to the drawing board. But you want to type that down, you want to write it down somewhere. But if you have a network, this is what I'll show you how to do. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off the system right here, and then I'm going to hook it up to an Ethernet jack, Ethernet cable. So I'm going to take an Ethernet cable, hook it up right there, turn the system back on, and then we're going to go over to our computer. So if you have a local network, this will be a little bit easier. But let's go over to our computer. Alright, so now at this point I have my Xbox on, it is running Zell, and I've gotten the IP. So that's why I said hook it up to a network if you have. My IP right here is 192.168.1.251. If you have it hooked up to your network, go ahead, click get CPU key. It now gets our CPU key, and it shows all the KV info. So that is all good at that point. So now if you have this, all you need to do is, again, you need to go to glitch 2, select that image, you need to create an XE build image. So now it's going to build an image off the 17511 dashboard. As you can see, it's now done. And at this point, we have a update flash file. So now what I've done is I have turned off the Xbox. This is off camera. I've turned off the Xbox, but you're now going to want to take your NAND X and hook it up to your Xbox and hook it up to your computer, and we're now going to flash our NAND. So let me connect it real quick. So now at this point, the way everything should be looking is you should have your NAND X connected, you should have it connected to your computer and to your Xbox, and your Xbox should be off, but the power should be plugged in, and you should also have your XE build image created as a glitch 2 image. We're now going to click Write NAND, select your dashboard, or select your console, excuse me, and wait. Now this is going to take about 8 or 9 minutes for my system right here, but you just don't want to touch anything, just step away. I mean, you can really pat yourself on the back at this point because you've gotten all the hard stuff done. You technically do have a reset glitched console, but we're now going to be flashing over our modified NAND so we can do all the fun stuff we've been wanting to instead of just looking at Zell. Alright, so now at this point it actually took a minute less, about a minute less. It took under 8 minutes instead of under 9 minutes, but we should have everything completed. So at this point, your system should be successfully everything soldered to it. It should be reset glitch. It should have the modified NAND sitting on there. Now this is what I would recommend. Go ahead and go over to your JRunner folder, and you're going to find wherever your serial number is. Double click that, and you're going to see everything here. You're going to see your image ECC, your KV info, your update flash, your NAND dumps. Take this and make sure you have it backed up somewhere. What I normally like to do is I like to take this and make sure I have it burned to a CD and just stick it with the console. So that way you always have a backup. Make sure you have that backed up because those are all your working files. At this point, we can exit out of JRunner. We now need to disconnect the JR programmer or the NAND X, whatever you're using. Disconnect the programmer from your computer and from your Xbox, and now go back over to the Xbox. So at this point, I now have the Xbox back to its standard setup. Everything is just kind of, sitting there. I have the HDMI plugged in, I have the power plugged in, that's really all I need. So at this point, if we turn the system on, let's wait for a little bit. There we go, it ended up booting up, and we should come over to our monitor right here. And we are greeted with the Xbox 360 splash screen, which that is to be expected. So good job on that. If you're getting this and it's not freezing, congratulations, you have done everything properly at this point. And just to prove to you all, this is indeed a reset glitch hacked system. Go ahead, turn the thing off. Because in Xbox, the fans have to keep spinning and spinning and spinning. There we go. And now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit the eject button right there. There we go. Now, this thing is booting perfectly. I'm very impressed with it so far. Come over to the monitor, and Zell Reloaded pops up. So I'm going to go ahead, turn this thing off, and give you all some last minute tips on here as well too, but I have to take some things off the system. So now, as you can see, this is our system. Everything's been disconnected, but the next steps you can take are you can go ahead and disconnect all of the NAND wires right there. Because you no longer need that anymore, which is pretty nice. At least we're not going to be resoldering our NAND because everything works there. It's the wiring I want to tell you all about, which I actually have a separate video talking about how to get good RGH 1.2 wiring. But this is what I'm telling you about. So we're going to flip over our system, and right here on the back, as you can see right there, a little bit hard to do with one hand, but we have our yellow wire and we have our blue and green wires. This is what I recommend you do. First off, kind of tape them down a little bit. So what I'm going to do off video here is I'm going to be taping this down and kind of tape it periodically at a few points. And then flip the system over and get 5 good boots. 5 good boots meaning that the system boots up, it gets a 360 splash screen, and it gets the dashboard without freezing. If that's good, then go ahead and start taping down the green and yellow wires as well, and do the same thing. Now, if at any point your system starts freezing or whatever it is, it's because of your wire placement. That's why I said do the yellow wire first. Once you can get the yellow wire secured and your system's not freezing or red ringing, you could do the other 2 wires. So that way, if you start messing with these wires and the system starts freezing and giving you red rings, you know that it's something with the placement of these 2 wires, and then you can go ahead and go back and edit it. But that is what I would recommend for you all for the final steps. So go ahead, desolder your NAND wires, get these wires taped up accordingly or secured however you want to, and then clean up all the solder points just to get the the residue and everything from the flux off. And after that, you're good to go. So congratulations, you've successfully reset, glitch, hacked, 1.2'd your system. That's weird to say, right? Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would very much be appreciated. If you absolutely hated it, a dislike is fine as well, too. Because who wants these things anyways, man? Who wants these? Anyways, signing off for real this time. Later, anyone.